The panic is not rooted simply in Jungkook's rising visibility, but in his measurable ability to outperform established American idols across sales, streaming, and influence metrics that were once monopolized by US performers. The global music ecosystem has always been competitive. Yet the arrival of Jungkook as a solo powerhouse has raised fundamental questions. How does an artist from South Korea, operating within a language barrier and a different cultural industry framework, outmaneuver long-established American music stars on their home turf? The implications are enormous, touching on economics, marketing strategies, fan behavior, technological adoption, and cultural globalization. For decades, the US Billboard charts, radio airplay, and retail sales were the primary benchmarks of an artist's success. American idols dominated this structure, supported by robust record label systems, traditional media exposure, and a vast domestic audience. Artists such as Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, Drake, and Justin Bieber were consistently positioned as the defining voices of global pop. The framework that elevated them relied heavily on radio programming, physical album sales in earlier decades, and domestic touring. However, streaming platforms have fundamentally disrupted this structure. Services like Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube have shifted consumption from radio-driven promotion to algorithm-driven discovery. In this environment, geographic boundaries matter less, allowing fans anywhere to propel their favorite artists to the top. Jungkook has benefited immensely from this democratization of music consumption. His fan base, spread across Asia, North America, Europe, and Latin America, acts collectively to push streaming numbers beyond what many American artists can achieve. Furthermore, digital globalization has erased the language barrier once considered a limiting factor. In earlier eras, non-English music struggled to gain airplay or sales traction in the US. Today, algorithms push tracks based on popularity and engagement rather than linguistic compatibility. Thus, Jungkook's Korean or bilingual tracks circulate within US playlists seamlessly alongside songs from American idols. The shift in infrastructure has opened doors that were previously sealed, and Jungkook has been able to walk through them with overwhelming momentum. What distinguishes Jungkook's rise from other international acts is not just his presence in the US charts, but his ability to outsell and outperform American idols on their own platforms. Consider the launch of his solo singles and albums, which consistently topped iTunes US charts within hours of release. Streaming records on Spotify have placed him ahead of established American names, with some of his releases breaking daily and weekly streaming milestones that US artists once treated as their stronghold. American idols often depend on extensive promotional cycles, traditional media interviews, and label-driven campaigns to sustain their presence. Jungkook's model diverges significantly. His releases are often announced with minimal lead time, yet the global fan mobilization ensures instantaneous commercial impact. This dynamic has forced industry observers in the US to reconsider conventional promotional strategies. The panic stems from the realization that traditional playbooks may no longer guarantee dominance when competing against fan-driven momentum tied to an artist like Jungkook. It is crucial to note that Jungkook's outselling power does not emerge in isolation, but is deeply tied to the foundation built by BTS as a group. BTS dismantled many industry expectations during their rise, including breaking into US mainstream charts without the traditional support of American radio or major collaborations. The group's legacy created an infrastructure of global fan mobilization that Jungkook now taps into for his solo work. This inheritance is not merely about numbers, but about systems. BTS's Fandom, Army, developed advanced strategies for charting, streaming, and purchasing music. These systems have been refined over years of trial and error, making them some of the most organized fan operations in modern music history. When Jungkook releases a song, this infrastructure activates instantly, creating sales spikes that are difficult for American idols to replicate with their comparatively fragmented fan bases. For American record labels, the concern lies in the scalability of this model. If Jungkook's fan-driven strategies prove sustainable, they signal a shift in how artists can maintain dominance without relying on traditional industry machinery. This threatens the existing business model that prioritizes label power, radio deals, and media exposure. One of the clearest indicators of Jungkook's impact is the decline of radio's dominance in the US market. Historically, American idols enjoyed the advantage of radio monopolization, with labels investing heavily in airplay campaigns. Songs that dominated US radio inevitably dominated the charts. Jungkook's outselling power disrupts this cycle. Even without substantial radio backing, his songs achieve high streaming and digital sales, propelling them onto the Billboard Hot 100 and global chart. The panic in the US industry arises because this trend undercuts one of their most reliable levers of control. If radio can no longer guarantee dominance, American idols lose a crucial structural advantage. Meanwhile, Jungkook demonstrates that direct fan mobilization through streaming can bypass traditional bottlenecks. For record labels, this challenges decades of investment in radio infrastructure and forces them to reconsider resource allocation in promotion campaigns. Jungkook's outselling power is not only about numbers but also about the economics of fandom. His fans, particularly within BTS's global base, operate with a level of commitment that translates into tangible financial investment. Bulk purchasing of albums, streaming parties, and merchandise sales are coordinated with precision, ensuring measurable commercial impact. By contrast, American idols often rely on a wider but less mobilized fan base. While they may enjoy high general popularity, their audiences are less likely to engage in coordinated economic support. This difference explains why Jungkook can outperform even the most popular US idols in sales metrics. The panic emerges when industry executives realize that the financial engine driving Jungkook's success is not easily replicable by American stars, whose fan engagement models are less structured. Another dimension of Jungkook's outselling power lies in cultural globalization. South Korea's investment in cultural exports, often referred to as the Korean Wave or Hallyu, has created a fertile environment for artists like Jungkook. Korean entertainment companies, supported by government initiatives, have strategically marketed K-pop as a global product. Jungkook embodies this strategy, representing not only a musician, but a cultural symbol with international appeal. The US industry, which has historically exported culture rather than imported it, finds itself in unfamiliar territory. The presence of a Korean artist outselling American idols within the US signals a shift in cultural power flows. For the US industry, the panic is not only about competition, but about the symbolic implications of losing cultural dominance in their own market. From a corporate perspective, Jungkook's outselling power presents both a threat and an opportunity. On one hand, American record labels fear losing control over market dominance. On the other, they see the potential of partnering with artists like Jungkook to maintain relevance. This tension is evident in the increasing interest US labels have shown in K-pop collaborations, distribution deals, and promotional campaigns. However, the dilemma lies in whether such partnerships dilute or enhance American Idol's positioning. If US Labels invest heavily in promoting international artists like Jungkook. They risk sidelining their own domestic talent. Yet, ignoring Jungkook's market power means forfeiting revenue streams. This strategic uncertainty fuels the sense of panic as executives navigate uncharted waters where traditional formulas no longer guarantee success. For US labels, this presents another challenge. Their artists may have larger promotional budgets, but they cannot always manufacture organic cultural resonance. Jungkook's ability to become a trending topic without extensive corporate intervention highlights a fundamental change. Audiences today reward authenticity and community-driven content more than high-budget campaigns. The panic is rooted in the recognition that money alone cannot guarantee cultural relevance. Social media platforms have become the central battleground for music dominance, and Jungkook's presence there is a critical factor in his outselling American idols. Platforms like Twitter, X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube amplify every aspect of his releases. His live streams attract millions of concurrent viewers, his posts trend globally within minutes, and fan-generated clips accumulate billions of views. American idols certainly have strong social media presences, but their reach is often more localized and dependent on label-driven strategies. Jungkook, in contrast, functions as both artist and influencer, seamlessly merging his musical output with constant digital engagement. His direct interaction with fans, whether through short live sessions, casual behind-the-scenes clips, or personal updates, creates a sense of accessibility that American idols, who often maintain carefully managed personas, struggle to replicate. This dynamic explains why his content achieves outsized engagement metrics. Every live interaction becomes global news within fan communities, driving additional exposure for his music. For US industry leaders, the lesson is clear. Social media dominance is not a supplementary asset, but a core driver of commercial success. Yet replicating Jungkook's authentic digital presence is not easily achieved through corporate planning, intensifying the sense of vulnerability. One often overlooked but significant factor in Jungkook's outselling power is the advantage of global time zone coordination. Because his fanbase is distributed across continents, promotional campaigns and streaming pushes operate in a 24-hour cycle. While American idols primarily rely on domestic audiences who consume music within a specific time frame, Jungkook's fans ensure that his songs are being streamed and purchased around the clock. This constant global engagement leads to chart stability. Even when American idols release music, their chart positions often fluctuate based on domestic peak hours. Jungkook, by contrast, maintains momentum through coordinated international streaming waves. For the US industry, this signals a loss of temporal dominance. Success is no longer tied exclusively to American consumer behavior, but to global collective action. The panic within the US music industry is not purely economic, but also psychological. For decades, American idols were positioned as the ultimate measure of global success. The realization that a Korean artist can not only compete, but outsell them destabilizes long-held assumptions about cultural superiority. Executives, artists, and media outlets now confront a new reality where US dominance is not guaranteed. This psychological shift influences strategic decisions. Some labels may push harder for international collaborations, hoping to absorb some of Jungkook's global appeal. Others may double down on domestic stars, attempting to reinforce American cultural identity. Yet underneath these strategies lies an unease. The symbolic power of being outsold in one's home market by a foreign artist cannot be underestimated. It challenges the narrative that American music will always remain the global standard. Examining specific cases further illustrates Jungkook's outselling impact. When Jungkook's singles have launched alongside tracks by major American idols, the results frequently place him at the top of digital sales charts. Even when American idols receive heavy radio airplay and media coverage, Jungkook's fan mobilization ensures that his numbers remain highly competitive. For example, his debut solo projects often recorded first-day and first-week sales figures surpassing those of high-profile US releases. Streaming platforms documented similar outcomes, with Jungkook outperforming artists backed by some of the largest US record labels. These comparisons highlight why industry panic is not speculative but grounded in hard data. Jungkook is not merely present in the US market, he is outcompeting the very idols once assumed untouchable. The outselling power, demonstrated by Jungkook, forces the US industry to rethink long-term strategies. Several key questions now dominate internal discussions. Should labels prioritize building globally mobilized fandoms rather than relying on domestic mass audiences? How can American idols replicate the community-driven models perfected by K-pop fandoms? What role should social media authenticity play in an artist's career trajectory? Are traditional investments in radio and mainstream media still worth the cost when fan-driven momentum proves more effective? The answers to these questions will determine whether US idols can adapt to the new global order or whether international artists like Jungkook will continue to reshape the competitive landscape.